Reminder that this webinar is being recorded, so if you have to step away or leave the webinar, that's fine. I'll be sending you out an email later this afternoon with a link to the recording, as well as the presentation that I'll be going through, the slideshow. So feel free to share this with your colleagues. It'll have all of my contact information and my signature, so if you have any follow-up questions or need anything, feel free to call or email me directly. So for today's webinar, we'll be going through the slideshow presentation, followed by a live demo on the site, and then I will hang around after the demo and answer any questions you guys may have. So feel free to type in your questions into the questions box on your control panel. So you can type those questions as we're going. If I feel like it's a good time to answer a question, or if multiple people are asking it, we can go in and I can answer that question, or you can hold your questions until the end and we will go through them together. So today's webinar is over enrichment and brain breaks using USATestprep. So as a former teacher, I know that there are times when the kids are getting a little bit antsy, or especially whenever it's this time of year, it's a good time to add in some activities that students can be reviewing, and students can be getting some enrichment as well as their normal instruction. So I'm just going to show you a couple of resources on USATestprep where these are included. All right. So we're going to be looking at our projector games to review the content. We have 4 different review games that are available. We're going to be looking at ways that you can create crossword puzzles to review vocabulary, or you can have the students accessing the crossword puzzles as well from their end. So you can either create them or the students can work on them. And then we're also going to look at our arcade. So the arcade is a really fun thing that the students like. It's a rewards-based arcade based on their scores on their assignments and independent work. So we're going to start out by looking at the projector games. So with the projector games, I'm going to be looking at 7th grade science for Georgia, but all of these are universal. So it doesn't matter what you teach, what state you're in, which content area, grade level, all of these resources are available to you. And the way that you access them is on your homepage. You just select your grade level or test type and then choose the content. So see, I am going to choose 7th grade and then select science. At the very bottom of the page that loads, these are your teacher resources. So you're going to have your online resources, your printable resources, and at the very bottom, your projector games. So we're going to be looking at all of the projector games today. So the first one we're going to look at is Battle Royale. So as a former classroom teacher, this was probably my favorite review game to play with my students. It's fun, it's interactive, it's competitive, and so essentially you as a teacher become the referee of a boxing match. And so you put your students into groups, and I always assigned a person in the group to answer, but what's going to happen is the projector is going to display the boxing ring, and whenever it's the first group's turn, they will answer. If they get it correct, they will get points, and then they will also get to choose a team to lose points. So it gets really fun whenever they start, building alliances within the classroom, things like that. There are some built-in classroom management tools for you as the teacher, so I'm going to be showing you some of those as well. So when you first go to Battle Royale and start to create your teams, you'll see that it defaults at 4. So you're going to choose 4 teams, and you can always add more if you'd like. One thing that my students always loved is they can choose their avatar for the boxing ring. So of course, sometimes my football players wanted to be the cheerleaders, or the princesses. I'm sorry, they wanted to be the princesses. But you can either choose the avatars for them or let them choose. Once you do that, you're going to go in and choose your content. So this is where your standards are going to populate. And for Battle Royale, you'll see here it says you must choose at least 5 elements or 5 standards, 5 substandards. So you're going to go through and you'll have to choose at least 5. So I've gotten, I have 2 selected here, so that means I need to select at least 3 more, and it'll let you know over here how many you've selected. Once you get to the last screen after you've selected your content, you'll see the instructions. So this is another thing that you can read to read the instructions. But then here in the very bottom, you'll see include team competitions in the turnbuckler challenges. So turnbucklers are random brain breaks that happen throughout the review game. So they can be the very first question or question number 7. You never know when they're going to pop up. And essentially they're just little brain breaks. So they could be something as simple as, you know, Team A falls face down and loses 20 points. So that one's, you know, not as interactive, whereas other ones could be choose one person from your group to list the most wrestlers in 30 seconds. And so I would have one kid from each group come up, they would get on the board, I would put on my timer, and they would start writing down the wrestlers, or it could be who can do the best impersonation of a violin player. So there are just different things you can do. But if you had issues with classroom management, and I know that sometimes I would have a class or two that might get too rowdy, you can always hover over this and show them, guys, I can turn these off. So you do have that built in, so you can turn those off if you don't want the distraction. This is what it looks like once the teams are in the boxing ring. So you can see their points, and you'll see that this is how the questions go across. If it's green, it's multiple choice. If it lands on yellow, that's vocabulary, and then red, that's your turnbuckler. And notice here in the top corner, you do have a scoreboard. So teachers, when you click on the scoreboard, this is where you can add bonuses or penalties. So this is another built-in classroom management tool. Let's say you have a team that is acting up, they're not following along. You can just go in here without saying anything and just penalize that team. And so I often would say things like, if I think that one person in your group is not paying attention, I'm just going to penalize your team. Or you can do the positive reinforcement of, hey, I really like how Sarah's behaving. That whole group is doing a great job. I'm going to add them a bonus. So you can always go in and adjust their scores. Or if they get a question wrong, but you could understand where they were coming from, you can add their points back by adding the bonuses. And then also from this screen, this is where you can save a game to continue later. So let's just say you do have a really intense game, or you have 2 days of review that's available, you can save the game and finish it another time. All right, our next review game is Class Party. And so with Class Party, this is going to convert everyone's device into a clicker. So if you want to think about other websites that allow their devices to become remotes, that's what it's doing. So essentially, once you choose your content, it'll populate a class code for you, class party code that your students would then log into USATestprep and access. What I like about our review game with Class Party, unlike others, there are some websites where the question is displayed on the board and then the students have 4 colors on their device. Ours shows the student the question in its entirety and the answer, so they can go at their own pace. So it's not necessarily that they're in competition with one another, it's just more of actually interacting with the content and getting the questions right, which I liked because I always had students who were very bright, but they might need more time than 30 seconds on the board to answer a question. And so they would get frustrated when they would get every single question right, but they would still come in 3rd or 4th place. But with Class Party, it's more of just how are the students progressing through the content. So there is a Class Party how-to video on the page, so feel free to watch that as well. So you'll choose your content, so you can do this based on a benchmark, so you can hand select the questions, or you can just choose a domain. Once you select your content, the Class Party code is going to be here, and this is what the students are going to type in to get access to the questions. And so this is a student account, and this is where they would click. So on a student's homepage, they have a Join a Class Party link. They would type in the code, click Submit, and then teachers, this is what you see on your screen. So you probably don't want to have your screen projected for the class to see, but what you're going to be able to see is you can see how the students are progressing through the questions. So this is something that I like because I could look at this and see, okay, Johnny is on question 7 already, and he has gotten every single one of them right, whereas my other kids are on questions 3 and 4. So that's going to let you know that Johnny is really understanding the content, whereas Mason might be on question 7 as well, but he's missed all of them. So he might be rushing through, or when all my students are on questions 7, 8, 9, and I still have Sarah who's on question 3 and she missed 1 and 2. So this is also going to be giving you some data as to where your students are with the content and how you can better serve them. We also have Thinkorswim, and Thinkorswim is team-based quiz-style show game. So what I like about Thinkorswim versus Battle Royale is Thinkorswim allows every single group to be working on every single question. So the difference between the two, again, you're going to choose your teams, and there is a how-to video for Thinkorswim as well. And with Thinkorswim, you must choose between 3 and 5 elements. You can do as few as 3 or up to 5. And then it's going to start the game for you. So this is what this game looks like. So your first team does get to choose the first category and point value. And so when they choose a question, this is how it comes up. So this is the 100-point question for this certain category. What happens is it just displays the question first, and so when the students answer, you can have them work in their groups. I always had like the little mini whiteboards, and whenever they were ready, I would say, okay, everybody hold up your answers, and I could see, okay, Falcons and Buccaneers answered D, they got it right. Saints and Panthers answered C, they got it wrong. So what I can do is I can check box the teams that got it correct, and then you'll see that it adds those points to the teams who got it correct, and it does penalize the teams who got it wrong. And again, you do have your add bonus and penalty on your scoreboard as well for this game for that built-in classroom management piece as well. And you'll see that I've already selected this question, so now it's grayed out. You'll see that it's now the Bucks' turn, and then you also have your scoreboard as well. And your clams are multiple choice questions, and your starfish are vocabulary questions. And then finally we have Tombus, and Tombus is just a board game, but it's a digital or a projector board game. So we do have a how to play video on it as well. So you choose your teams again, and with this one you just choose your pawn colors. You must choose at least 5 elements with Tombus, and then once you get to Tombus, you'll see that it is just a board game. So the teams will spin the wheel and they'll get to move up when they get the questions correct or incorrect. So those are our projector games that are available to play on USATestprep as a review. Moving on, we have our crossword puzzles. So there are 2 different ways to access crossword puzzles. One's from the teacher side and one's from the student side. So for the teacher side, again, you would choose 7th grade and then science or whatever you teach. And underneath these printable resources, that's where your projector games are. But remember, I said they're online resource, printable, and then projector games. So underneath the printable resources, you would choose the puzzles box. And then you would choose either a domain or element, and then you would click Generate Crossword Puzzle. When you do this, you need to go ahead and print a copy of the crossword and the key at that time. At this time on our site, these are randomly generated every single time you click on crossword puzzle. So if you don't print the key then and there, or at least download a PDF copy of it or something, it will be different every time that you click on that button. So just keep that in mind. For students, they can also access the crossword puzzles. So if you don't want to print them, you just want the students to work, what they can do is they can, again, they're going to do the exact same thing that you do, but it takes them to a different screen. So your students are going to choose their content, and then this loads the student test landing page. And so you can have them click on any standard, and a drop-down menu will come up that has questions, vocabulary, performance, tasks, videos, and puzzles. And you'll notice that the puzzles are optional. So our site does track how they're performing with the standards, but the puzzles are optional. But here with the puzzles, this is where they can work on the crosswords as enrichment. And then finally, we have our arcade games. So I am logged in as a student. So you can see student here. This is a student account. And you'll see that this student has 738 tokens. So this student has been working diligently on this site. I do have a breakdown for you guys of how the students, like how many points they get or how many tokens they get for each activity. But once they have tokens, they can start interacting in the game arcade. Teachers, you have the ability to lock the game arcade from your classroom management, from your manage class icon on your homepage. So you can't always lock the arcade to prevent the students from working whenever, or playing in the arcade when you need them to be working. And I'll show you how to do that during the demo. But students can click on the game arcade, and then you will see the different games populate. If you see this HTML5, that's going to let you know that these games can also be played on iOS devices, so they can play on their phones or iPads. The more expensive the game, we find are the more fun games, so we do increase the tokens for those. And then you will notice that there are some free games as well. And free games are free because there are content questions embedded. So they have to be interacting with the content and getting questions right to continue in the game. And this is how the tokens are earned. So when students complete assignments, depending on their scores, this is the breakdown for the amount of tokens that they earn. So you can refer back to this slide once you get the presentation if you want to save it anywhere. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into the live demo. During the demo, after we do the arcade, I'll show you where you can lock the arcade. And then after the demo, we will have a question and answer session. So if you have questions, feel free to stick around. All right, so I am going to open up, this is my sample teacher page. So I'm just going to go through and quickly show you where those projector games are. I'm not going to go through and build one. I'll build one of them, but not all 4 of them because I went through them in the presentation. But again, you'll choose across the top of the page your grade level or testing, and then you'll choose your content. At the very bottom of this page, this is where you'll find the projector games. So if we click on Battle Royale, this is where I would type in my team names. That's where it's going to be generic. You don't get to be the Buccaneers. And then you can just choose the characters quickly. And then when you click continue, this is where you're going to choose your content. So again, I must choose at least 5 elements. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then finally, this is where I can turn off the turnbucklers if I want. So you can see it's that easy to set up the game. And once I click begin, my game has now started and it's ready to go. And so you'll see it's Team A's turn. Here's my scoreboard where I can add bonuses or penalize teams, and then I can either end the game or save it for later. So I'm going to go back to my home page. Again, I just choose my content, and here are the other projector games. My crosswords are here under puzzles, so in the same place. So choose your content, go to the correct content area and choose puzzles. And then now I can generate a crossword puzzle. So when I do this, I can now print the key and I can print off a blank copy. All right, I'm going to go back to my home page, and now I'm going to log in as a student. This is nifty. If you guys don't know this, you can always log in to any of your student accounts from your homepage as long as the student is in your class. So you just click on the class management icon and then click on login next to the student's name, and this takes you directly to the student's homepage. So if you didn't know that you could log in as your student, you can. I'm now logged in as Tommy Edison. He's a student. So the first place I'm going to do is show you the crossword puzzles, so he can again choose the content. The test landing page populates for him, and then he can click on any of these standards and then start working on a puzzle from here. So that's available for your students. And then also going back to your students' homepage, this is where they can see how many tokens they have, and then this is where they can access the game arcade and start spending those tokens. So it's really funny because there's always at least 1 or 2 kids in the class who, you know, it's not about getting the tokens and spending them, it's just about having the most tokens in the class. And I love that because you'll have kids who hoard their tokens. So teachers, if you want to make sure that your students are working and not playing, I'm going to go back to my teacher account. So here at the top of the page, it tells me you are logged in as Tommy Edison, return to your account. I am now back on my home page. And on my homepage, Tommy was in my test prep class, so I just click on the class management icon here. And now I can lock the game arcade, and I can lock it for 15 minutes up to 2 hours. So let's say I have a typical 1 hour long class. I lock it at the beginning of class. But let's say that they work really hard, the first 50 minutes of class, and so you want to reward them and let them have that brain break. You can then, after 50 minutes has gone by, you can click on Unlock Game Arcade, and it'll tell you how long you've had it locked for. You just click Unlock, and now your students can access the arcade. So that is available for your class as well. Okay, so that does it for my demo. So if you do not have any questions, you are more than welcome to sign out of the webinar. Again, later this afternoon, you'll get an email from me with a link to the recording as well as a link to a copy of the presentation. Feel free to make a copy of the slideshow and make any changes to it you'd like. You can always edit it and make your own copies. So be looking out for that email. If you So feel free to sign out if you don't have any questions. If you do have questions, though, feel free to type those in the questions box, and I will be here for the next couple minutes to answer your questions. Thank you for joining me. So the question is, do the crosswords have word banks? No, but whenever you create it, you will have the key so that you can see all the terms. So then what you can do is just write out the terms and add them to the bottom of the sheet you're going to make copies of, and that way you can have a word bank added. All right, and then I have another question of how long does a projector game usually last? That is a great question, and I don't really have an answer for you. It really just depends on, it could be, the content that you teach, or, how well your students work in groups, or how long you give them to answer questions. Generally speaking, I would say they take at least one class period. And that's just because, I want to make sure that all the teams get an equal number of turns. So I would often put a time limit on how long my students had to answer. So I would have a little stopwatch at my desk or on my phone, and I would say, okay, you have to answer within 1 minute, and that kind of keeps the game going. And if they can't answer within 1 minute, then they don't, they miss the question. But again, if you do have shorter class periods, you can always save the game and finish it at another time. Great questions.